Welcome back. Chapter 2. You tired of me yet? We only got 19 chapters to go. I hope I'm not too boring. I try to make it short, sweet, to the point because I know videos are rough sometimes. And without getting feedback, I really don't know where I'm going from y'all. That's how important feedback is from the last chapter. Chapter 2, the importance of ethics. It's very important to be an ethical speaker. It leads to your credibility. It leads to the ability you have to convey a message. If whoever's listening to you doesn't think that you're ethical, they're not going to pay attention. If you have a reputation of being unethical, they're not going to know what they can believe and what they can't believe. Think about all the politicians out there that have lost credibility and did not get reelected. Think of the bosses that you've had and their ethics. Were they ethical? Did you mind following their direction? Or did you wonder whenever they told you to do something if maybe they had some underlying reason? Well, they're the boss, I guess I got to do it, yada, yada, yada. Well, to be a good public speaker, you need to be ethical. And the guidelines to follow that are make sure that you're ethically sound. Be fully prepared. And don't go to give a presentation where you aren't prepared and you're not ready. Have you ever gone on a job interview when you weren't ready? A job interview is public speaking. So you have to be prepared. You have to be honest. If you are tagged to go give the CEOs and CFOs and everything else a briefing on a new project, and you don't know the answer, and you try to fluff your way through it, shall we say, and they know that you're not being honest, you're losing credibility. If you don't know the answer to something, say, let me get back to you with that so I can give you a complete or an update answer. Avoid name calling and poor language. We tend to relax sometimes when we're with people we know. And if we're relaxed and we might say something that's off color, don't want to do that. I had a student that was a dual enrollee. He was a high school student taking college classes, yada, yada, yada. And he started his speech by, well, you know how women are. I think he was 16, 17 years old. He never really had enough experience to know how women were. But he immediately shut down the female population in the audience. And the guys were going, I can't believe he just said that. Now I'm going to have to pay for it. So don't be calling names. Don't use poor language. More and more language is considered acceptable. But it's still best to, when you're doing a public presentation, to avoid language that could be considered wrong, off color, inappropriate. Plagiarism. We have to we have to sometimes get our information from somewhere else, and that's fine. But you need to cite your information if you're doing a public presentation. One of my favorite examples is a speech Ronald Reagan gave when the Challenger blew up, Challenger disaster. And he said, and when I first time I heard it, I loved it. He said, they slipped the surly bonds of earth and touched the face of God. It's like, wow, that's so deep and wonderful and poetic. But he didn't write that. His writers took it from somebody else, and he didn't cite him. But I guess when you're the president of the United States doing a nationwide address using a teleprompter, you don't have to cite people. But when you're doing a presentation, you have to cite your sources. And I fully recommend that you paraphrase instead of quote. If you're going to quote it, here's my guidelines for quoting. If I can't make it any better whatsoever, if it's perfect, I'll quote it. If I can paraphrase it and say the same thing, I'm going to paraphrase it. And the reason why is if I have to memorize a quote, I might mess up. And if I mess up, then if they know the quote, they're readily going to know that I messed up. If they don't know the quote, but I mess up, I could get flustered and then try to figure out where I was at. Now, there's a couple of different types of plagiarism that you have to be aware of in academics. Global plagiarism is if you go get somebody else's speech and give it. The whole thing is somebody else's, they created it, and you're just taking credit for it. Patchwork plagiarism is where you take bits and pieces of 2 or 3 different speeches. Let's say you're giving your presentation on underwater basket weaving or squirrel fishing, and you went and found 2 or 3 different speeches, and you took parts of each one of them, and you didn't give them credit for it. Now, when you do research, you're going to get bits and pieces and parts, and that's what your references are for, and that's what your citations are for. But I want to hear your voice in there, not you regurgitating what somebody else said. Incremental plagiarism, little bits and pieces here and there, they're all wrong. You need to cite your sources and tell us what you think, but avoid using the phrase, in my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion, because it just sounds like you're telling me what you think and not supporting it with other documentation. Now, the internet is a great place to get stuff, but we all have to remember everything on the internet isn't true. So if you go to the internet, what you're probably going to do, being is this is a virtual class and you don't have the library to go to and look at different archives, you need to use some solid sources. If it's .org or .edu, it's probably pretty good. If it's .com, it's probably commercial. And I like to use this for example as the NRA, NRA.com. You can go on there and read a whole lot about gun ownership, but it's all biased. It leans toward the right to own guns instead of other people's rights. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to own guns or not. I have some myself. I was throwing skeet yesterday in my front yard for my grandson. But what I'm saying is when you go to a website, you need to understand that they could be biased. And it's okay to get that information as long as you realize that it could be biased. That's why I'd prefer you go to other sources. Ethical listening. You know, when you're an audience member, you need to be courteous. Ethical listening via the internet. You know, are you really going to listen to it and pay attention, or are you going to be multitasking and playing a game or checking your email while the audio is going or the video is going? And the same goes if you were in a crowd of people. I have a grandson that loves his games. I have to keep telling him, put your headphones on. Everybody else doesn't need to hear it. But be courteous, be attentive, especially if you're seated in an audience. One of the hardest things for a public speaker to do is give a presentation and see that somebody is not paying attention. You know, we all sit in the audience and we have this, the acronym is WIFM, W-I-I-F-M. What's in it for me? Well, if you don't think there's anything in it for you, it's going to be hard to pay attention. But you need to pay attention. You need to listen and pay attention to what the speaker's saying, and that way you can form a qualified opinion. Especially right now, we have all these political things going on, and you have these political advertisements. Be courteous, be attentive, but be critical. Think about what they're saying. Is there a chance they could be biased? Is there a chance they could be not necessarily lying, but maybe hiding the truth a little bit? But as an audience member, you should listen courteously and be attentive in the whole process. And that was chapter 2. I didn't mention that last time, but I will post my speaker's notes online. And that's basically a keyword outline I use to teach by. It doesn't have a lot of stuff. It just says plagiarism, global, patchwork, incremental, the internet. All stuff I know that I need to talk about. And that's how I want you to give a presentation. I don't want you to have something you're trying to read, because if you get lost trying to read it, you're not going to do well. So be ethical, be prepared, know what you're going to talk about. Have it to where one word will tell you everything you need to know. And I will be seeing you again. If you have any recommendations on these videos, let me know. You know, maybe I ought to change the surroundings. Well, I'm redoing my basement, so maybe I ought to change the background. You know, get one of those faux backgrounds where you can see the beach waving behind me. Wear a Hawaiian shirt, who knows? But if you have a suggestion to make the video better and make the system better for you, please let me know. Once again, you have any questions, email me. You've got my email address. I will reply within 24 to 48 hours. And I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you. Thank you. Have a great day. Have a great week. And chapter 3 and 4 will be coming up soon. I think on the syllabus for next week. But just keep up with the videos. Keep up with the chapter. And we'll make this thing happen. Have a great day. Bye.